This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening. Welcome to the January 25th, 2021 Kingston City Land Bank Board Meeting. My name is Mike Gilliard. I am the Executive Director and will be serving as the moderator. To members of the general public, we welcome your participation and ask that you reserve your public speaking period for the public speaking period of the agenda. And I reserve the right as the moderator to mute or kick inappropriate behavior. Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you. Okay, it's our annual meeting. Welcome, everybody. We have kind of a lot to get through. Steve, I think I heard that we should do the officer elections and everything at the beginning rather than the end.
Yeah, a new year, and I think as part of the new year, we should do the officer elections right up in the front, and then, then that way we'll be able to continue the rest of the meeting with the new officers in place.
Very good. Okay. So, before we get to that, can we just adopt the prior meeting minutes so I don't forget?
I make a motion to accept the minutes of December.
I second.
All in favor of approving December 21st, 2020's board meeting minutes?
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Minutes pass. Thank you, everybody. Bartek, thank you once again. You nail it every time. Okay, so I guess before we give announcements, let's do this thing. So we have, so there's chair, vice chair, treasurer, and secretary. I think for a couple of these, there's multiple people interested. So we'll all sort through that together. But I think Aneshka and I spoke. Aneshka's chair of the governance committee, everybody knows. And we think it's because we can't do this in person with, like, I think we did it line balance last year. I can't really remember. We were thinking in the instance of there being a contested thing, the people up for that position will just leave the room for the vote. We'll text them to come back once the vote is completed. That seemed like the easiest way to do this. Zoom. So with that, I think, Aneshka, you have the floor.
Yes, so as chair of the governance committee, I called people to ask them if they were either interested in persisting in their position or if they were interested in nominating someone else. I think I connected with everyone, including Serena, who's not here. But so the slate, should I say the slate now? Of the people who are running for each position. So we have for the board chair position, Daniel, and no one else volunteered. We have for the vice chair position, Ilana, to continue in her current position as vice chair, and I am also running for vice chair. So Ilana and I will have to leave the room and the rest of the board will vote. For the position of treasurer, we have Omari asking to continue in his position, and we have Karen also running for treasurer. Karen Rooks also running for treasurer. For the position of secretary, we have Bartek, and no one else volunteered to do that incredibly humongous job. So that's the slate. And we're going to start with the board chair position. Since Daniel is running for that all by himself, we should continue, and someone should make a motion to elect Daniel Cantor again as board chair.
I think first we need to call for nominations.
Oh, yes, that's right. I forgot.
And then,
Are there any other nominations? Even though I asked all of you individually, are there any other nominations for those positions? If there are none, we're just going to continue. So we'll, I do need a motion to have Daniel Cantor continue as our board chair.
Bob, I think you're trying to talk, but you're muted or something.
Actually, he's not. That's weird.
It says you're not, but there's no noise.
Uh-oh, we're having your same computer problem again, Bob.
In the interest of time, I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Someone second?
Seconded.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor of having Daniel continue as our board chair?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstaining votes? No. All right, so congratulations, Daniel.
Thank you.
You are once again our fearsome leader, and we look forward to another year of your valiant crusade for the Kingston City Land Bank.
Thank you.
So I'm going to turn the floor over to you, back to you, Daniel, to do the rest of the election,
Okay.
because I am also running for a position.
Okay. First of all, thank you, everybody. I will do my darn best to make you proud this year. So for vice chair, I guess, do we want to have a moment to speak, or just go straight to votes? I don't know how we want to play this.
We're, I don't know. Do you all need us to say why we want to be vice chair? Is that we actually should have really prepared a statement, possibly, but we didn't. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't totally mind either way. I'm just a little surprised because I didn't know that this was, I mean, I got an email from governance committee saying, do you want to do it again? I never heard back. I sort of assumed, like the last time we did it, it was a very congenial process and we sort of all talked it out. So I didn't know people were like challenging each other. And I just, I don't know what the process is. I don't feel so terrible that I haven't prepared anything. I just, in the interest of board relationships and not making it a contentious environment, I just feel a little like, oh, I wish we had known in advance and might have been able to talk something through. But I don't feel particularly strongly either way. If people don't need to hear from people, I think it's fine just to vote. I would just put a note for future process that maybe we should make sure in advance that everyone's aware of how this process is going.
Yeah, I actually tried to figure out whether or not we could make the slate public, but it was felt that we didn't need to do that until tonight. So yes, I totally hear you.
And so if I could just add, when it comes to just the nominating process, so even if folks, with you and Eshka prior to the board meeting expressed interest, I think what we should do for the record is tonight that there should be nominations from the floor for a first and a second for each person that's interested. And then at that point, then we could call for the vote, or if after that first and second, if anyone felt like they wanted to say something, once they were seconded, they could. But again, I would.
I got it.
At least for the record, we
Yes.
need to do the nominations today here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was totally unaware of that. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. So I guess because of the way that you know, you guys will have to vote or discuss or do whatever you need to do. Ilana and I will step away from the meeting. Correct?
Yeah, I'm a little confused about the criteria for voting for folks.
So I don't know if we have any specific criteria. Obviously, like you guys said, this is the first time we've had multiple people interested in officer positions, which thank you guys. I think it's cool. But I don't think for any of these positions we have anything really in writing in terms of qualifications or otherwise. I apologize. I've not done this before. So
Yeah,
I think
it's always so
you-
far in our meetings so far, it's always been the person who peeped first, right? Like, oh yeah, you can be the treasurer. Oh yeah, you can do it at, you know,
so here's
even
what I think.
even the board president position was like that when we voted Daniel in the first time. So
Correct.
yeah, we don't have a process in place. It's true.
So maybe let's do this. If we can do the nomination, and then based on who is nominated, who I assume are the people who are volunteering, we'll have a short period where you can speak or not speak, and then we'll kick you out, vote, bring it back. How's that? Okay. So I would like to nominate Ilana Berger as vice chair.
And so then we would need a second. You'd have to ask for a second, Daniel.
Oh, I have to ask for it. Sorry. I need a. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
I'm still a little confused though as to this process.
Which part?
Like it's fine that we're nominating people for positions, but I'm not exactly sure how to decide between folks with no criteria for why I'm choosing them.
Well, I think that's why we give the nominees a second to explain. I mean, why they want to do it, what they intend to do. I'm not sure. I'm not.
So
Really.
if I could, yeah, if I could just say that I think, you know, when so some boards do officer selection every year, some boards do it every other year, like every 2 years, and so generally when these types of things come up, you have to go through the nominating process like we're doing now, and then usually that is an opportunity for each board member that is running for an executive role on the board to express, you know, why they're interested, you know, what they've accomplished, why they want to continue, and then the board votes. Generally, I haven't seen it where board members actually leave the room, usually because they're open meetings, and so you guys leaving the room, you don't have to necessarily leave.
Oh, okay.
At least from my experience, like, you know, it's you know, this meeting is being recorded to be posted on the website anyway, and so folks will see it later on when, and you know, people can vote for themselves, obviously. So they're not, you know, not allowed to vote, or they are allowed to vote, you know, for themselves if they so choose. And I would just say that, you know, there is some boards have a much lengthier process for creating a slate of candidates for their board. We talked about this in the governance committee, that in some boards, their bylaws indicate that the governance committee is responsible for basically coming up with a slate of candidates that would be presented to the board for approval after a kind of interview process. And but our bylaws don't read that way. Our bylaws basically say that it happens at our first board meeting of the year. you know, without any of that. Aneshka, you know, tried to do some due diligence, and Daniel, so that we didn't have like a, well, no one wants to do this happen at our board meeting. And so we tried to at least make sure that there was one person running for every position. But I do think that that's, at least that's what I have to add. I don't, you know, I don't know if that helps, Amari, but that's at least kind of some of the history or background on some of this stuff.
Yes, and I totally get that people are wondering, so why, you know, should the vice chair be Aneshka instead of Ilana, right? So I can offer what I plan on contributing as vice chair this year. This is a very pivotal year for us. This is probably the first year, full year, that we will actually be truly operating as a land bank. And the last 2 years have been a formative process. We've had to slog through a lot of difficulties, and you know, we've prevailed. We now have people in place to make all of our jobs actually a lot easier. And I believe that a vice chair takes kind of a leadership role that is almost equal to the chair, but is more of a support position. I've been a huge support to Daniel over the last 2 years. I don't know if anyone has noticed that. I don't expect people to notice that. I also am on the governance committee, and I see all the needs and necessary sort of machinations of how the board works. I am learning, as everyone knows, as we go. And you know, the governance committee has really helped me. I'm also on the communications committee, and that has been with my incredible, you know, committee members, also a process of very formative and important advances. And the third committee I'm on is fundraising, which again is a learning process, but one that I think is extremely necessary. And this is why I became interested in actually becoming vice chair, because governance, communications, and fundraising are such integral parts of how to move the board forward, and what we do as a land bank. So so that's my little speech, and you know, I would appreciate someone to nominate me, but I would understand if you feel very comfortable with Ilana. I'm sure that she's done a great job so far.
Are you looking for a nomination? Is that what Daniel, is that what your next step would be? I would nominate, assuming my microphone is working, Aneshka.
I'll second that nomination. Would anybody else like to nominate anybody else or express interest? I don't know, maybe Dan Carey wants to do it. Ilana, do you want to sorry to put you on the spot. I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize this was happening, so I haven't prepared anything. But yeah, I mean, you know, I totally agree with what Aneshka said. This is like, it's been a lot of time of sort of building, and it feels super exciting to be at the point where we're getting houses out there, and you know, the discussions and decisions we're making are like actually concrete things about how to sell them and how to get people in them. So I'm excited about that. I like plan the year out really thinking through, despite having kids and a busy work, like carving out time to make sure I was really doing my work, and feel real responsibility for my role in the land bank, both in the communications committee and dispositions and acquisition. I've really enjoyed the vice chair role. I think like the two things that I bring the most to this role, one, like 25 years in nonprofit organizations, both as executive directors and boards, and sort of working with like human beings, in addition to sort of structural stuff and how you build organizations, like how to integrate humans in the work and make sure that we understand that, you know, like how to build an organization and a board and good relationships. I have strong opinions, but I also try to have my opinions and the difference between my opinions and the people. And I think the other is the 25 years I spent in community organizations have all been in community organizing. So I have real commitment to and skills in how you do deep community outreach and building, and feel like we are at the point right now where that stuff feels really useful. And I think I can use that obviously in the communications committee, but that part of, you know, as a vice chair, when the executive team meets, is really making sure that everything we're doing is geared towards community building and relationship building, and sort of building knowing how to communicate stuff to the public. So we're in an environment where people like to go after us, where we're really trying to like keep our happy, positive image out there and really show the good work we're doing. So I would love to continue to serve in this role. Yeah, that's kind of all I got to say. Believe me, if I'd prepared a speech, it would have been great, I can tell you.
That was great.
I did not prepare anything, as you guys probably can guess, but we're both put on the spot by the process that we did not properly prepare. Sorry.
Yeah, so I think with any of these, you know, this is a great board. Like, so regardless, I think, you know, this doesn't say anything about people personally. It doesn't mean a ton, I guess. So with that, so we have two nominees. How do we do a vote? Do we? Steve, I need to.
Daniel, I would suggest doing the you know, you now know how many board members are present, and so you really could do a number of yes votes for Alana, and you know, for the record, you know, a number of yes votes for Aneshka, and whoever has more wins, right?
I have a quick question. Caller 1, is that Serena or someone else?
Yes, it is.
It's Serena? Okay, okay.
Okay. Should we do it roll call style so it's not as many people screaming at once?
Sure, Daniel. Just for record keeping would be easier. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So you have two choices, Alana and Neshka. Bob, can I put you on the spot? How do you vote?
I'll vote for Aneshka.
Serena, can you unmute?
Do I get to explain my vote? Can I explain my vote?
Sure. Yes.
My reason for voting for Aneshka is that I want to give her a chance. Alana's been there and done the job and had the experience. And so I'd like to broaden the experience of board members, and therefore I'm voting for Aneshka. It has no reflection on the job that Alana's done, which I think is fine.
I guess, Serena, if you're able to chime in, I'm going to move on, but just.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. I just got a new phone and I'm still learning how to use it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I put my vote in for Alana.
Okay. Omari?
I'll vote for Alana.
Steve?
I'm gonna take what Bob said, and I'm gonna go with Aneshka and second all of Bob's comments.
Alana? He said we have to vote.
Awful. I hate this whole thing. This is terrible. Do I have to vote?
I don't know. Well, you can abstain.
I mean,
thought-
I would vote for myself, but it feels really weird and silly. This whole thing feels really off. But okay, I guess I vote for myself.
Okay. Karen,
I'll put in a vote for Aneshka.
okay. Bartek,
Alana,
okay. Aneshka,
I'll vote for myself.
okay. And then I think it's just me. I, for the same reasons Bob said, I would like to give Aneshka a shot. He's excited. So we can't tie.
so right, so that's 5-4. Aneshka is the vice chair.
Okay. So,
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for suffering through this.
Alana, thank you so much. And we
Yes,
will
and
continue.
thank you. You know, Alana, I'm definitely going to count on your experience as vice chair, and you know, we'll do a lot of things together anyway, because we do on the communications committee. So, and I do appreciate your tremendous background in community organizing. So I'll definitely refer to you for a lot of that stuff as well.
All right. So, secretary, we have Bartek graciously, I believe, has volunteered again. Is there anybody else interested in the role of secretary? Okay.
I'll nominate Bartek for secretary.
I'll second.
All in favor of Bartek as secretary in 2021?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Bartek, thank you for continuing. It's a hard job and you do a very good job with it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Bartek, I have to say, you do like the best secretarial job. I cannot believe how well you keep it up. Thank you so much for your service.
Okay. Why can't I speak? Treasurer. I believe both Omari and Karin are interested. I will move to nominate Omari. Can I get a second?
I second.
Can I also move to nominate Karin? Is that allowed?
Probably
I'll
should
nominate Karen.
be, okay, I was gonna say, this probably should be somebody else. I'll second, however.
And then I guess if either of you would like to speak, go right ahead.
This is Karen. So yeah, I think Omari does a wonderful job. I am interested in the position because I think that it would actually complement the work that I'm doing on the fundraising committee really, really well. It's a very tight connection between the two. And even though I'm on the finance committee, I'm still not, I don't feel as though I'm privy to quite as much information, or I shouldn't say privy to quite as much information as the treasurer position would be, but I think that there's a greater scope of information that comes along with being treasurer. So I think those two positions together really do complement each other very well, and I think would lead me to being able to be more effective in both positions. And then in terms of what I would bring, have a background in nonprofit organizations. I am familiar with how the budgeting works, some of the reporting requirements, and I do really enjoy sort of details and digging down into details and being really clear and communicating, you know, to the board as would need be. That's, I think, the most of it.
I'd say that, you know, over the course of the last 2 years, I think we all know, especially those who've been here from day one, how challenging managing our finances has been for a number of reasons, which we don't need to get into. But I've been really happy to welcome Erica to the team, as well as Mike. Mike has done a great job since he's come on board as well. But I think Erica brings such a strong background in financial management, and you know, from day one, I've been a proponent of having a staff that can really support the work, because as much as all of us as board members can contribute to this organization, the sustainability of this organization really depends on having a strong staff and strong systems in place. And so, you know, I'm looking forward to continuing to work with Mike and Erica to develop those systems, to really get a clear picture of how much we're spending in terms of our renovations that we're going to be doing over the next year, and really think about the programs of this organization and how we can really fund it so that we can engage the community even more. Because I think that's our next step, is really how do we get folks in Kingston who have seen the work that we're doing, you know, heard rumors of what's going on, but are still waiting for some real substantial outcomes from us. They really want to see what we're doing, and I think that a lot of that has to do with thinking about our organization, thinking about the programs of our organization and how we fund those to really engage the residents of Kingston.
Thank you, guys. All right. If there are no other nominees, I guess we should vote. And it seems only fair that I reverse the order. So I'll vote first. I will vote for Karen. I think she's really stepped up as chair of the fundraising committee and is excited about this role. So that's my vote. Agnieszka.
Working with Karen has been a pleasure so far, and I've already learned a lot from her. So I'm very excited to vote for Karen for treasurer.
Bartek.
Karen.
Karen.
I will also vote for myself. Thank you.
Alana.
Omari.
Steve.
I think we should give Karen a try.
If my count is right, I think that's it then. But we can still. Omari, would you like to vote?
Yeah, I'll vote for myself.
Okay. Serena. Or Bob.
I'll vote for Karen.
Sorry, I didn't get my mute off in time. This is Serena.
You're fine.
I'll vote for Omari.
I believe the votes are for Karen for secretary for this upcoming year. Sorry, treasurer.
Congratulations, Karen.
Thank you, Omari. I really do. I mean, you're still on the finance committee, right? And so I do highly value your knowledge and background and contribution. So I thank you very much. It's been fantastic working with you, and big shoes to fill. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. I know that was painfully uncomfortable. I appreciate sticking through it. Okay. So congratulations to our new and reinstated officers. You don't know what you just signed up for, and I appreciate it. Okay, so moving on. I have a couple announcements, but since we've waited and I think there's only one member of the public, let me just bump that up. Dan, so we have a public comment period we reserved 30 minutes for. I don't think we're going to need it. Dan, you and I spoke earlier this month, but you're welcome to have the floor.
Hello, everyone.
I'll just say, can I preface that short? Sorry, Daniel. Can I preface that? It's actually, Daniel, we're actually going to do 10 minutes of public comment, and technically, each speaker has 2 minutes. So Daniel, you have 2 minutes to ask questions, or if you want to give a statement.
Thank you, Bartek.
Okay, thank you. I just have one comment. It seems more useful to me to have the public speaking at the end, because like you guys usually get to the things that people ask about anyway, and then so you don't have to like repeat yourself twice. And also, then that's the point where it's like, oh, but you didn't talk about this one thing, so I have a question about that. That's my only comment.
I think the challenge is just that we don't always know like when the meeting is going to end, and understandably a lot of people like to like come on and then just jump off when the public period is over. But maybe we can add like just add like 5 minutes at the end for like final thoughts from the public, or because I agree stuff comes up halfway through that Bob has a
And yeah, like maybe it would avoid people just coming in, saying their thing that they wanted to vent, and then leaving and not like actually listening to the entire meeting, and you know, not seeming to care really about the meeting, but just saying their thing and leaving, you know, which happened last meeting.
You know, Daniel, I would suggest why don't we add a public opportunity for the public to speak at the end of the meeting as well. I would not eliminate the beginning one, but adding a short one at the end. I'm willing to take the extra time to do that as a board member. I don't know. I assume if the others are as well, I think that'd be a fine addition.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
Dan, your wish is our command. Next one. We can put one in the middle, 2 hours after. It'll be great. All right. Any other public comments? Okay, then we'll move on. Chair announcements. Just a few. It's been a busy month, so I'll just start off with the strat plan because we're a little behind where I thought we'd be. So I'm going to send out a doodle tomorrow with basically what Mike and I have put together. We just kind of want to do one more pass just for clarity pretty much, but again, jumping off point. So hopefully we can get a session scheduled. I'm hoping early next week, and then basically we'll do like one session with the full board, then the committees will break out, and then we'll come back as a board, and I'm aiming for by end of February, preferably February's board meeting, we have something pretty solid put together. Obviously, it's a plan, it changes, everything moves, but that feels like good timing. So keep an eye out for the doodle. I'll send the draft of what we put together, and then we'll have lots and lots to discuss. So that's my update there. We, I think, are extremely close to signing an agreement with Repco to handle the sales side of the homes, which is really good. We, like we've talked about a bunch, we don't really have the capacity on the staff side to pre-qualify buyers and help them through the home buying process and all of that stuff. Repco, you know, has their kind of tried and true method for years, and they're excited to get involved. So as pretty much as soon as that happens, we will be asking them for a link to their portal, their application portal that we can put up on our website. Essentially, that application will be their kind of existing stuff plus a supplemental piece from us that more or less asks for a kind of narrative component of why they're interested in the home. So from there, Repco will basically vet those candidates, provide us a list of qualified candidates to the acquisition and disposition committee. That committee will then go through, make a recommendation, hopefully, to the board, and then we will vote as board to dispose to that person or family. I believe we'll be trying to have essentially a first and a second choice, so that, because often, because it's such a prolonged process, buyers can fall through a lot. So it's good to have somebody waiting and not have to start the process all over if they drop out month 6. And I think that's about it. So basically, Repco will have 30 to 45 days to get us a group of candidates, and then we have to turn it around pretty quickly. So that might mean that occasionally we'll have to hold like a special meeting just to do a vote on that, unless I guess we want to decide, which we don't have to do right now. We could, I think, decide as a board that the acquisition disposition committee can just make those decisions.
Could I interrupt? I'm sorry. I have not seen any of the Repco agreement, and they've sent us a draft, but it was so drafty. I really would like to see what we're going to be signing with them. Just as a, you know, sort of point of information, I personally don't think Repco is all that tried and true, and so that is something that, you know, this is why I volunteered to be part of that conversation with them, you know, Kathy Germain before, but I haven't ever seen anything since that Kathy Germain conversation, and I would like to see what we're going to be signing up for. I think we all need to know how these people are being vetted, and it does really make a difference to our community for that process to be as transparent as possible.
Absolutely. I thought that the draft had been sent around, but that probably was just, okay. So before we sign anything, certainly you guys should see it. I think it's fairly straightforward. I think Mike can probably speak more to kind of the specific challenges of doing that side of the work. I have no experience to base on, other than I wouldn't know how to do it, and I know we're a small group. So Mike, do you want to talk about that anymore, or you have a whole section later on?
How about I send it around so everyone has an opportunity to look at it, and then we can regroup if we have to address any concerns or questions, or just talk through it, if that works for everyone?
Yeah, that sounds good. I just, you know, it's a couple months ago, we talked about the importance of kind of getting it up on our site as soon as possible, like how to apply if in fact this is going to be the route. And I think it is more than likely that this is how we do at least the pilot program. So, you know.
I don't have any qualms with Repco. You know, I just want to know what we're signing on for. That's
Oh,
all.
for sure. I apologize. I didn't realize it hadn't been signed. So we will do that.
Daniel, can I interrupt you for a second? Do we need a resolution to authorize your signing that agreement? When the time comes. I'm not suggesting it tonight. I'm saying when the time comes.
Probably.
Yeah, I think so.
Even if we don't, why not? Yeah.
So,
Mike.
If that's the case, sorry, I'm just being procedural. If that's the case, I think we should seek a resolution tonight rather than delay that for a period of time. Although it does make it difficult to ask people to opine on something they haven't seen. So it's in your inbox right now, but that doesn't help. I can talk through any of the details of it if it's helpful, but it may not be proper to ask for a vote on something you haven't had a chance to review. So just my thoughts.
Yeah.
Is this the sort of thing where we would need 30 days to, I mean, it's not a bylaw or anything, right? So I'm just wondering if it's the sort of thing where we could vote to permit or authorize Danielle to sign, and then, but subject to 100% agreement from the board, from all board members over email. Does that?
Or can you do the authorization through email tomorrow or the next day if people have had a chance to read it?
If I could just highlight.
If we do a strategic planning session next week that has a quorum of the board, technically that is a board meeting, I believe. This is how it works. And so we would have a quorum in theory next week.
I think we'd have to call it a special board meeting, wouldn't we?
I think
rather than just like a strategic plan meeting, which I'm fine with, but.
Yeah, I think technically if it's going to have a quorum of the board, technically we announce it as a public board meeting. We can have, because the strategic plan sort of by nature deals with personnel and stuff, I think it's good grounds to go into executive session, but we do still have to announce it and publish an agenda saying that there will be an executive session. So essentially we open publicly, we adjourn publicly in the middle where that. I think that's how it works.
Is there an estimated value of the contract? Because I think that would help us make a decision on whether I think we actually need to vote on it as a full board or not, because we probably have the funds in the budget already.
Yes.
But it depends on the value, though, I think, of the contract per our bylaws, right?
Correct. So
sorry, Mike.
Sorry, Daniel, I cut you off. You go ahead.
Well, if it's per house, it falls below. If it's, I think, the fee is $3,500 per house.
It's $1,750 per house, so $4,250 for 3 houses, which is what this is.
Right.
I mean, we can check our procurement policy, but I think that wasn't it contracts under 5,000 or the board doesn't need to approve? And so you just said it was $4,250?
Yes.
So, I mean, so we can share the contract with everyone just so that everyone knows what's going on and what we're doing, but it doesn't seem like we need a resolution from the board then to approve signing the contract, right?
I believe that's correct.
Okay.
I definitely want, everybody should be comfortable with it though and have, time to ask questions and stuff. So Mike has sent it around. I propose, since we don't have to vote, and over email over kind of the coming week, if people have thoughts or questions or anything.
It sounds good. Yes.
Okay.
By the weekend, maybe.
Man, we're really just figuring it out on the fly today. Okay. So that's the REPCO update. Also with, we should be in contract on the rehabs. I thought we would be by now. We are not, but we're close. So the firm that's doing 64 Van Buren, I think we're very close, and I would expect to be in contract next week. The other two houses, same firm, are taking a little bit longer. We will get through it. It will be fine, but just going slower than I hoped. But I think our general kind of schedule is pretty much intact, so that's good. Scott Dutton, the esteemed architect of Kingston, has signed on to be the, Mike, is it final decision, initial decision maker, who is essentially the third party that decides if in fact the contractors are at 90% of completion or whatever these sorts of things are. So they should be joining us for the monthly kind of walkthrough check-ins as construction is underway, and basically authorizing payments to be made when the contractors say they've reached a certain point, that kind of thing. So that's good. And a legal thing I had no idea existed, and now it's taken care of.
Daniel, can I talk to that just for a second?
God, I wish you would. Yes.
As a design professional myself, unfortunately some days, it's important to have a third-party design professional in the mix to make impartial decisions about potential disagreements between the owner and the contractor. And Scott Dutton will fill that role nicely. He's, from what I understand from my conversations with Mike, he's given us a bargain. It's not going to be particularly expensive, and it's important to have a design professional in the mix so that issues are resolved without having to go through all kinds of other horrible processes. So I think it's a good thing. I think it's important, and I suspect that we will have an ongoing relationship with Scott Dutton or another architect as we move forward. So that's just my 2 cents from the acquisition and disposition meeting where we talked about this.
So assuming that we continue to do rehabs, I think we're all in agreement that having an architect put together a real design package will be a helpful thing for bidding and for, you know, additional conversations with contractors. So we're learning. Title reports and phase 1 environmentals are underway on 8 properties right now. We have 2 new title companies working on it. They are Frontier and Hillendale. Is that right, Mike? Lovely guys. It's been a couple of weeks. I don't think we've heard anything back from them yet, really, but they seem extremely professional and they seem to understand kind of the nuts and bolts of these foreclosures. And I didn't know before this that not all title companies are really up to that task. So I think we're in a good spot with those, and hopefully they can move through them a lot faster. But we've gotten clean title on 111 Downs and 20 Stefan. We are awaiting, and 149 Greenkill. We're awaiting some environmental review on 149 Greenkill. So Mike has been taking the lead on that. He will update in a minute. But anyway, so we're moving through those title reports, trying to get to a point where we've really done our due diligence on all 36 and can start making some fun and exciting choices about them. Novo has, this is sort of old news, but sort of new news. So there's the $275,000 with the comptroller of the city of Kingston that was supposed to go toward office renovations on Franklin Street. That money has been reallocated to for the land bank to buy down the acquisition of these homes from the city of Kingston. However, that still has to be basically papered and signed. And so, as far as I understand, Novo will be meeting with Mr. Mayor and working something out shortly. And then we can start buying some stuff with that freed up funds. I've requested to have like 5 minutes for the land bank on the housing subcommittee calls that the Common Council has every month. I haven't heard back, but I will continue to press. In addition to that, I'm supposed to give some sort of a report to the Common Council at the end of February. So by the end of this week, I'll basically be making that request formally, Andrea, and we'll be putting together a report that I'm sure everybody will see and have input, and it'll be great. So really hoping that the Common Council will start giving us a little of their time so they can stay informed. I also spoke to Greg Shaheen at the Kingston Land Trust about the vacant properties and basically just trying to gauge what of, if any of them, they would be interested in. I think Mike and I have now walked all of them. There's, a couple that I think are fairly easy, sort of side lot. I don't know what else you would do, but the neighbor clearly wants it, kind of thing. There's other ones that are just these incredibly strange parcels that we can't build on them. I don't know what we would do with. So I'm hoping that the Land Trust can express some real interest in some of these and make this all make sense for everyone. So yeah, I think that's my update on my end. Any questions, comments, Alana?
I have a question. I'm not sure, you were talking about it earlier, but I keep waiting to see something about the strategic plan. Are we going to talk about that tonight?
Yeah, sorry, I mentioned at the top. So I am going to send out a doodle tomorrow to try to get something on the books next week as a kind of initial strategic planning session with the board. With that, I'll also send out a draft of what Mike and I put together. I just want to give it one more pass for like clarity, because we don't see eye to eye on how to make it.
I thought that we had talked, I guess if you're doing a session, I think I've just said, I feel like if we're going to do something that to mitigate, I've said this in the executive committee, but not to the whole board, like mitigate the situation where you're doing so much. You and Mike are this like bubble that does so many things. There's lots of other expertise on the board, including in things like strategic planning. So rather than you two like creating a process that we sort of launch into, that there's time to get a little input on the process itself. And so if you're scheduling sessions already, I'm just wondering, is that first session something we'll get the document in advance and it'll be the opportunity to sort of weigh in on what the process is before we're diving in?
Yes, that's
okay. And we'll be able to get the document before we have a doodle, but before we meet, we'll be able to see something.
Yes.
Okay.
I was trying to send it to you today, but I ran out of time. So yeah, basically we've gone back and forth a couple of times. I think we're at a good point to bring everybody in, but I didn't want us to just be starting from nothing and all trying to do this over Zoom. Just seems really hard. So yeah, stay tuned on that. You will have a document tomorrow and a doodle, and we'll start scheduling some stuff. With that, Mike, do you have a report for us?
I will add to what you just said. Now coming after you is even more difficult. You mentioned, I'm glad you covered everything. And just to add to one piece you mentioned, the tanks. So they're buried oil tanks on two properties that we're considering purchasing. One is 237 East Union, and the other one is 149 Greenkill. Greenkill, as Daniel mentioned, is in Midtown, which makes it a good candidate for our pilot program. Last week, I went with a tank locator specialist and all of his fancy equipment, and we located the tanks. That was moved over to a tank removal company who Sometime this week, I believe we'll be finalizing what the proposal might look like to properly remove those oil tanks in accordance with state and any other regulations and close them out so that we have what should be considered a clean property. We've also conducted the phase 1 environmental investigation, which is how we found out about the tanks. So it's just a necessary course of business for what's going on with those. I don't believe the pricing will be prohibitively high, which is based on having gotten 3 quotes already for just the investigation portion, and to be continued on that. But by the time we meet next, we will definitely have the quotes for removal of the tank and some recommendations. I would recommend Greenkill would be a property that we make a decision on purchasing sooner than East Union, because you may recall East Union has an existing federal lien on the property, which is set to expire later this year. But until that expires, we would have to hold funds in escrow to cover that federal lien. So it's also not in Midtown. So to be continued on environmental, but Greenkill I think will be first. I have no updates that were not covered on the funding side. I will speak a little bit to the county conversation. I continue to speak every 2 weeks with members from the county. Unfortunately, this past week they canceled the call, so I did ask them about a connection I'd made 2 weeks prior. One of the parcels that we have the opportunity to purchase is a vacant lot on 3rd Avenue in the roundout Punkhaki section of Kingston. They had recommended touching base with a contiguous property owner who they have connected me with in writing today. I'm going to reach out to that person and see what is possible, given that if we were to assemble the larger site that's located in that area, it would allow, according to the representatives from the county, maybe 20 or 22 single-family homes. Is somehow they've done a lot of due diligence on this already. So it's a longer-term item. It's a potential opportunity for the land bank. It's not anything that's coming up near term, but just so you guys have an idea of some of the things I'm working on. That's a potential assemblage, and it was a referral from the county, so greatly appreciated. And I think that's about it. I think everything else has been covered. I always leave open an opportunity for questions and answers if anyone wants to ask me anything, but that's the end of my report. Thank you.
No, thank you. No, thank you. Okay. Committees. Fundraising. Tell us.
Hello. We did have our we had 2 meetings, one with Mike and Anishka, and then another with Anishka and myself. And essentially, we firstly to just report on, Mike and I had a call with program manager at Dyson Foundation just to let them know what the land bank is doing, what differentiates the Kingston City Land Bank from other land banks, and where we would be looking for funding in the future. And they encouraged us to get in touch with, reach back out to them once we've sold our first house and are on our way. So I think it was an encouraging conversation, and Mike made some really great points, and some hopeful about that in the future. Beyond that, Anishka and I are working on some short applications for 2 foundations, corporate foundations, and we've developed a database of local family foundations for whom we will be reaching out to again ask if the work that the land bank is doing would align with their giving interests. And so since some of them are very, very local, I was thinking actually to email a list out to each of you. It's a short list of names to see if anyone would know any of the individuals and be open to just asking, if we could, to making that connection and asking if we can just sort of talk with them and talk about the land bank and trying to just sort of build our donor base a little bit. And then we also just discussed the strategic plan nothing in detail. I think we just asked questions that along the lines of what Alana asked and what others have asked. And so we're just excited to sort of incorporate our thoughts on fundraising and that into the strategic plan. And that's it. Any questions?
Yeah, I'm wondering about your conversation with Dyson. Did they give any indication as to what aspect of the land bank they'd like to, or they would be interested in funding potentially?
Yeah, they actually, so they kind of fund in 3 avenues. They fund for operating costs, they fund for very specific projects, and then they fund under a, and the projects can be single or multi-year, and then they fund another line of grants that I can't recall the name, but it includes things like strategic planning and giving funds for smaller funds. I think they're less than $12,000, that third line. And they did encourage us to consider that, to consider a funding for, a consultant to lead through a sort of broader strategic planning process. And so that might be something that we look for, for the next strategic planning process that we go through. And then, but they thought that they typically only give, they kind of have an order, they only give operating costs, contribute to operating costs after they've completed a project with an organization. And so we're not quite at we don't quite have the groundswell that they would look for before they would contribute funding to a project. But we talked about them in the very short term, asking, would they be interested in helping to pay down, basically provide grants so that we could reduce the purchase price for some homes that we would be very, very focused on affordable housing. And that was kind of, we left it sort of talking very broadly, and they asked us to follow up for a more specific conversation when we're a little further along.
That's great, thanks.
Okay, my pleasure. Anything else?
Thank you for doing that, Mike.
Sorry to be a stickler. I just put on the agenda the idea of calling to a vote within the fundraising committee, a request for,
Thank
sorry,
you.
I just wanted to highlight.
So you didn't have it in front of me. So yeah, this is, Aneshka actually knows a little more about this opportunity. It's a learning opportunity that we could send board members to Patterns for Progress for essentially technical assistance in developing project ideas and ideas to both develop and then fund those and carry through those project ideas. It's kind of a collaborative workshop with their technical oversight. Aneshka, I don't know if you had wanted to add anything further. I think what we're asking for, they do offer scholarships. In the interest of time, we were hoping that the board would approve paying for 2 positions in this program, and we would seek scholarships, in hopes to not have to pay the full amount. But I don't know if you wanted to add anything to it.
That's pretty accurate. I really don't have anything to add.
So it would be for a full amount of $2,400, and as Mike noted on the agenda, there is an amount for a total annual budget of $3,000 for board training. And I think, I don't know that we have to send both of us from the committee, because saying this out loud, that's a large chunk out of the board education budget. I don't know if anyone has any other questions or comments, or Mike, if you know more about this opportunity than we do. It was sort of a late addition.
Yeah, I noticed it because I go to their regular Hudson Valley, Patterns for Progress online webinars. They're always really interesting and really sort of, you can see the trend of how real estate and just plain old, development of this whole area is going. And that is why I am so interested in becoming more involved with them, and also making sure that we every year attend their annual meeting. It's very educational and also keeps our finger on the pulse with what is really happening regionally, right? We have to really be aware of that. We can't just be myopically focused on Kingston, because the region is, directly affecting our well-being here. So yeah, so that's why I thought this would be a great thing for us to become more integrated into that regional conversation. So I'll put out a motion to vote for allowing us to spend money for board training. And I guess we'll have to figure out who the board trainees are if we don't get scholarships, but that'll be another conversation. But this would pay for 2, right, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, so the motion is to allocate not to exceed $2,400 for attendance to this Patterns for Progress event.
Correct, thank you.
Hey, Daniel, this is Steve. I would just because for kind of record keeping and being kind of consistent, my sense is that we already, we don't, I think under $5,000 need a board vote to spend money, in a budget line that already exists. And so I think technically we don't actually need a motion to kind of spend the money, but I would say that because this is kind of board training dollars, I think just getting kind of the consensus of the board that like we're all okay, because this is kind of like all of the board's money for training, like as each board member, like I think just getting a kind of a heads up that it's happening, and then just to have a consensus that, hey, this seems like a good reasonable expense. But I don't think we need to have a motion officially to approve the funding, because I think as long as our our procurement policy says we probably shouldn't under that, because then we could get into a situation of, oh, we did for this one, but we didn't for that one. And, it makes the record keeping a little bit harder.
So there was a reason for this, which Mike will now explain. And I have
it could not be a correct reason, but the thinking behind the reason was that certain committees serve in an advisory capacity and some do not. And so in a non-binding advisory capacity, the committee would have to bring forth any requests for expenditures to the full board. That's my understanding of how we set it up with the committee charters. But that's the thinking why to take these to a vote, the 2 items on the agenda tonight.
But the money is still allocated for board training in the budget already.
Yes, it is.
Sorry.
So you're just looking for a consensus about sending people to this training. Is that correct?
I guess. That's fine with, I guess, does anybody have any objections or concerns to allocating the funds this way? Okay.
Not to allocating the funds, but to going to the training.
Go.
Okay.
All right.
The funds are one thing, training is the other. What we're looking for is consensus.
Can I just make a point?
Yeah.
I just have a question, because Aneshka mentioned that this is ongoing on an annual basis, and I just
it's not ongoing. I'm talking about the annual meeting. We should all attend the annual meeting if we can. I was the only one who attended last year.
Okay, so that was my question. I wasn't sure what was ongoing or what was annual. So this training is a one-time thing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And sorry, was the annual meeting the one that I think it was you and me and Callie, I think, went?
Yes, with Brenna, yes.
Okay. Which was fascinating. If people can go, it's worth going. All right. So if we don't need a vote, shall we move on from that topic? Great.
Please.
Okay. We're getting there, guys. Governance. Aneshka, you're up again.
Okay, so we actually decided that the governance committee doesn't need to meet every month, that we'll meet on a quarterly basis, and so the next governance meeting is slated for March. Let's see, Steve reported on what we already know, reinstating the directors as they are, and then we also clarified the procedure not very well for the board officers and at the annual meeting. The last thing we talked about was the strategic planning meeting, but of course that has already been discussed. That's all that we talked about on January 8th.
Sounds right. I rudely skipped over the finance report. I think Omari probably does it.
Well, Karin is now the finance committee chair, but just kidding. Erica's going to present. Erica's going to present.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
I'll be the deal breaker today. So we had a finance committee meeting a couple of days ago. I don't even know what date it is anymore. Last week, I believe. So we went over just a few things that I wanted to share with the board. I have currently transitioned the trial balance from the previous software into a new software platform. We've test run, which I'm very excited to share, a project module that allows us to track projects. We did like a little test for one of the projects that we're working on. We are, myself, my team, and Mike and Owen are working on creating a comprehensive chart of accounts for the accounting system that will allow us to track the projects in line with reporting for requisitions. And we are on track to have a first set of financials for you guys with everything up to date and in order next month, as well as we have been in communication with the CPA firm to discuss the timeline for the audit to make sure that we have completed the requirements by mid-March. That's it. A chart of accounts got me really excited.
Thank you, Erica.
That's two.
Thank you, Omari.
I would just add that we had I thought a good discovery about just needing to more properly document or just document our online donations in a way that's easily discoverable for Erica, which I thought was good. And
yes, and that will, by the way, that platform will be linked. I spoke about it with Mike earlier today, and we'll be linking it into the new accounting software. I love everything just feeding in. It's good technology, guys. Did anyone have any questions for me?
What is the software that we're using now?
So we're going to switch to QuickBooks Online. It's one of the most user-friendly right now, and I think just in the world of COVID, it's really nice to have a platform that allows access from anywhere for the appropriate people. Also, they have that great component of having the project management tracking, where some of the other not-for-profit softwares are really focused on kind of just temp restricted and unrestricted funds. So I'm hoping that will be a nice, easy transition for everybody. I mean, I just don't think we really need to spend the money on some of the other stuff like NetSuite or Fundeasy. Also, it comes out with some really nice like dashboards for board reporting. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
It all sounds great. Cool. Bartek, communication.
So during our committee meeting earlier this month, we met with Adriana from the Farm Hub, who leads kind of a translation collective in the Hudson Valley, and we discussed potentially using their services for any information sessions going forward and making sure that we are being language accessible. We also sent around the acquired properties talking points to board members, kind of an FAQ that board members can use if they receive questions from the community about any of our properties or any of our processes. And then obviously the big push right now as of last week is the sales and marketing timeline that Mike had sent around. And given that the application period with RUPCO will be opening soon for the first 3 properties, making sure that we have the outreach planned to the Kingston community for those 3 properties. So we're putting together a list of actions and activities. I'll just list a few of these. Actions. Obviously, building a comprehensive mailing list with local housing orgs and other nonprofits. We also have an existing media mailing list. Making sure that we have the right technology for info sessions, and that will require us switching to Zoom for those so we can have translation capacity. Using the services of our designer, Rebecca, for a flyer and also a mailer template. Working with Adriana and the translation collective. Hosting at least 2 info sessions during the application period. Working on media placements, working on individual board member outreach, and then also making changes on our website. So once those activities are finalized, I will send the timeline of those to the entire board for feedback.
Okay, I was just going to ask, you said that it was already sent by Mike, or was that something else you're referring to?
Mike had sent around the sales and marketing timeline. Now, I don't know if, I'm not remembering if Mike had sent that to the entire board, but that was, no?
I sent that to acquisition disposition and the comms committee. The thinking being, Omari, that those were the 2 committees most focused on it, but I'm happy to forward it if it's helpful.
Yeah, basically, Omari, it's just the timeline of when the construction of these homes will take at least 6 months, but because of the process by which RUPCO takes, we need to actually accept applications for those homes way before the construction is complete. So just trying to align, when everything is happening, basically.
Yeah, I appreciate how thoughtful you all have been about those different points of outreach. And Mike, if you could send that over, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure.
I think, given, especially now that I'll be only on the finance committee, I'll probably miss a lot of information as I have already, not serving on other committees. So I don't know if we want to talk about how we rectify that a little bit, not right now, but it just feels like there's information in different parts of the organization, and this meeting becomes a little bit of a like mashup of like, now this is what we did the last few weeks, and it's hard to follow all of that when I'm just hearing about it in this meeting.
Yeah, I think we should put that on our agenda for strategic planning. It's been a challenge since day one, but I think like trying to get information in one place continues to be a worthwhile effort. So yeah. Bartek, was there more or?
That's it. I guess I would say to the board is that this is all coming together pretty quickly, assuming that the RUPCO agreement is signed, soon. So I would ask for your feedback, if anyone has any, once I send all those list of activities around, just so we can incorporate it into our planning.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for putting together the talking points document too. That was great. Okay, acquisition disposition. We have had a fun month. Mostly at the meeting, we talked about pricing the homes. So again, this all has to happen, well in advance of the homes being done. So basically, we talked a lot about, so our grant, I believe we have 5 homes, all to be sold to under 100% or less of AMI. So we talked about kind of how we order those and why. So I think the thinking that we walked away with was that 64 Van Buren, we would be pricing for 60% of AMI. I don't remember offhand what these numbers actually translate to, but Mike basically has a Excel sheet that does a pretty simple algebraic formula of number of bedrooms and spits out kind of what the affordable mortgage is at different AMI levels. So it's pretty cool and can make these conversations move fairly quickly because we can play all these different scenarios. So I think we walked away with 60% for Van Buren, Main Street going 70% AMI. The thinking there was essentially to, encourage economic diversity in this neighborhood. It's not super helpful for us to do 100% AMI right there, but having a more affordable house in that neighborhood seems smart and mission oriented and all of that. And then Hasbrook at 80% of AMI. Also, not that it is super relevant, but just to note, those are also in proportion to our rehab costs, which are still a little in play because we're not quite on contract, but looking like that's the order in terms of how much we're actually going to spend. So that I think was the majority of the meeting. We talked a little bit about the RUPCO sales component and a little bit of the timeline there. Other sort of relevant updates, I think, was basically the porch rebuild at 174 Hasbrook is completed for now. There's still, and it looks pretty crazy if you drive by because everything really needs to be like painted and caulked and cleaned up. But structurally, it is sound and it's, I think, going to be really beautiful when it's done. So that'll be really exciting in spring when it gets painted, but at least now it's not going to kill anyone. So that's great. And I did speak to the Corp Counsel's office on sometime last week. Kind of nothing to really report there. Essentially, I tried to ask about specific properties and was told those are questions for your title company. I'm not telling you anything. So nothing really to report. I am not aware of whether the mayor has spoken to Corp Council about additional title questions. However, I'm also hoping that our new title company is better at kind of shaking things loose than our old one was. So I guess stay tuned on that. And I think that's pretty much it. Alana, Bob, Aneshka, or sorry, Serena. Did I miss anything important? Okay. So,
Can I ask a question?
of course.
Mayor, was that a conversation you were able to have, or did you get any feedback from the Corporation Council? Is that a question we can ask?
We continue to have conversations about, I think one of the things that we came to the realization of is that, to be honest, some of the first houses we chose to look at are some of the worst ones with the most title issues. And, you know, we've now set those houses aside for the time being to focus on ones that we have been successful. And I think Mike and Daniel have been successful in getting good information, you know, to their title company and then cleared. So I think we're up to 8 good title searches coming back now. So I think that we are making progress. There's definitely more capacity needed to be able to continue to move at the pace that I think the land bank eventually will need to occur at. And, you know, we're continuing to, you know, try to identify sources of funding to be able to help move that capacity along quicker. And so hopefully we'll have more to report on that piece of it in the coming, you know, weeks ahead. But I think that we are making some better progress now than we were before.
Because Novo offered a little bit of funding, right, for some temporary assistance or something along those lines. Am I remembering correctly? To help with title issues, to help the city with sort of wade through title issues.
So I think that there have been conversations like that. I haven't had those conversations with them yet, but we do have a meeting soon. So that's probably on the agenda, I would hope.
Okay, awesome, thank you. And then I just had one other, which just goes back to, I think Midtown Rising, am I getting the name correct? They had expressed interest in the Van Buren Street house. And I was just wondering if, sort of as like for their offices, and I didn't know if that's a different process, or do they go through, did that conversation reach the ears of the Acquisition Disposition Committee?
I know Jordan Scruggs came to the last meeting and also mentioned that. I don't think it was related to that though. Either way, the Van Buren, that ship has sailed. That house is getting rehabbed as a single family and sold as such. So
I think that just for clarification's sake, I know the street pretty well because I visit Jordan there a lot. Not a lot, but I visit Jordan. And what she's talking about is if the houses on the street are eligible to become land bank houses, would Midtown Rising be able to acquire one of them through the land bank to have as offices? That was her big question.
Right. And if memory serves, I think she was referring to a different house that is neither owned by the land bank nor the city. So I'm not really sure. I don't know which property she's talking about, but it's not ours. But I think we talked about that last time with her, and essentially same thing we would tell anybody, you know, if it's a qualified proposal with the, you know, with funding and all of that, like we're open, we're just, you know.
Yeah, and it also brings, you know, up the thing that I always bring up, like maybe they want to eventually buy into a house that will be a sweat equity house that will be renovated by, you know, maybe a co-op of interested people who want to see Midtown Rising have offices. She also says that there are other, not only Midtown Rising, but several other organizations that would go in on something like that. That's what she talked about.
Yeah,
I think this is a good, I know we're almost done, like one, just to remind, this isn't directly relevant to that, but for everyone to really look at the talking points that the comms committee came out with as a general way to remember that we do have some good stuff. But on this, I mean, I know we have a process property by property, but I also think we've been pretty clear in our mission that our primary goal for these houses is housing, right? I mean, I think that's really what our mission is, and that particularly in a place like Van Buren, where there's a lot of folks, I'm sure, who would want to be living there, that we would be, I would just encourage anyone looking for like to build an office in Midtown to let them know they shouldn't wait around for a land bank house, because I'm hoping that we're moving everywhere where we can housing.
I think the intention was well-meaning, because Midtown Rising is a grassroots organization and the other organizations are also very much local Midtown not-for-profits that need a home.
Yeah, I wasn't at all commenting on their meaning and their intent, just that I think that's our mission, and I like Jordan a lot. I want Midtown Rising to have an office, so I would just say not to have them, to be clear that we're prioritizing housing so that they're not like waiting around for a land bank property to build their offices. If they're looking and they really need an office, that shouldn't be something they're like waiting on as a, a very high likelihood endeavor.
yeah, I think
that was spelled out pretty clearly as an answer. So, but at the meeting, at the open call meeting.
Yeah, I've known Jordan for years, so I can also, sounds like we all know Jordan, great person. But yeah, I mean, I think in fairness, really nobody should be holding their breath for a land. There's only so many of them, so, yeah.
I think it became clear to her that, they're not going to wait for a land bank from our answers, because she just wondered, I think, what could be done about the houses. She lives right there, and what could be done about that street, where a little girl was killed very recently. So she's just concerned. She has a small daughter as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think she was looking for an office space actually, but I have to jump off in 5 minutes. I just wanted to check, is there any other vote that we need to take, or the appointment of committee members? Do we need to do that before?
Yeah, so maybe if I can just jump to that, I feel like okay. I guess, does anybody want to jump ship from a committee that they're currently on and or join a committee that they're not currently on?
Sorry, just to review the committees, we have fundraising, audit, governance, communications and community engagement, and acquisition and disposition.
Correct.
Is that a design committee meeting that you suggested?
It's just not really a real thing yet.
Oh, okay.
But I'm thinking when I don't want to get people started on work that doesn't end up being a real thing. So like, I think what we're gonna do is identify these final 2 properties, issue an RFP for architect services, assuming that like that is in fact how this is gonna work, then essentially the design committee would provide like plans to the architect to turn into something that is more kind of official as an architect. But so essentially we're not asking them to do a bunch of design work, we're asking them to be architects. And so if that's the setup we have, then it definitely design committee comes into play. That makes sense. So yeah, so I think for right now, let's deal with the 5 core committees. So yeah, I can read off.
Can I make a proposal?
Yeah.
I would like to join another committee, but if it's possible for the finance and fundraising committees to be merged into one committee, that would make it easier for me to be a part of both of those efforts. I'd love to support Karin and Aneshka in the fundraising piece. So we don't have, I mean, I guess we probably can't vote on that.
I mean, that's preferable to me. I feel like the more we can streamline, so there's not so many committees. For informational purposes, that would create a committee of 4 if we kept all the same members, which is perfect.
Well, Omar, I would love to have you part of fundraising, so that would be fantastic. I guess having a foot in both of them, I think they are doing separate things. They definitely complement each other, and information is, you know, needed for both. So yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. I don't know what procedurally needs to happen for that to be a thing. I mean, I think it's.
I actually,
yeah.
I'm already on 2 other committees. I would like not to have the finance committee. It seems I've never been to a finance committee meeting, so maybe it'll be helpful to our fundraising efforts. But fundraising is already a pretty big lift. But anyway, I
How about if
dread also adding a 4th committee to my plate.
Can we schedule them so that they follow each other? So that, I mean, right now fundraising follows governance. Can finance follow fundraising?
Why not?
So that they're back to back, and Omari, you can
Erica's about
have a block on your day. Or
Erica's speaking.
I wanted to say to Omari that that has come up a lot in a lot of board meetings that I attend, and it makes sense for the committees to work very closely together. However, it's really important to maintain kind of 2 separate functions, because there's a lot of things that finance will have to go over that kind of bombards the fundraising committee, but there's also a lot of key points that the finance committee needs to be aware of, right, when they're moving forward, and the same thing vice versa. So I think just making sure to have that open communication between the committees, but functioning as 2 separate committees would be really important. And kind of what Karin said, it's kind of, you know, having one go after the other, or vice versa, even during the public meetings would be really important and really helpful, so that the community hears, you know, the budget side kind of flow into fundraising. And that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down with having back-to-back meetings if that's possible. That'd be great.
I think that do that, at least for now. Sounds like a responsible thing. So with that said, would you like to join the fundraising committee as well?
Yes.
Okay. So anybody else with? So currently, if everything stays like it is now with Omari on fundraising, there's 1 spot on governance, 1 spot on finance, and 1 spot on fundraising. Okay, so given that, can I just breeze through these appointments? Let's do it. To the Acquisition and Disposition Committee, I'm appointing myself, Alana Berger, Bob, and Serena. To the Communications and Community Engagement Committee, I'm appointing Bartek, Alana, Aneshka, and Serena. To Governance, I'm appointing myself, Aneshka, and Bob. To Finance, I'm appointing Omari, Steve Noble, and Karin. And to Fundraising, I'm appointing Aneshka, Karin, and Omari.
Make sure you add Steve to the governance committee.
Oh my gosh, sorry. Yes, I'm also appointing Steve Noble to the governance committee. Sorry. My brain. Okay. I think that about does it. If we want to, Omari, that was mostly for you, if you have to dash. But
Yeah.
okay, good to see you. Thank you.
Thanks. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Okay, do we need to, so I think, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, the committees elect their own chair at their committee meeting, right?
I believe that's the case, yes.
I think that's the case. So everyone's on their own. Good luck. New business. I don't have a ton that we haven't already talked about. It's going to be a very exciting big month. And keep an eye out for the strap then doodle. Try to respond quickly so that we can figure out getting this scheduled. Cool.
Daniel, it's probably an announcement and not new business, but as you all know, Mike is now working exclusively for the Land Bank, which also leaves the city of Kingston without a director of housing initiatives. And so we did post the job a week or two ago. So if you know anyone that is interested in diving into the housing arena here in Kingston to help city government move the needle on the housing crisis that we have, I am looking for a full-time employee. And so if you know of anyone, the job is posted on the city website, or you can find it a week or so back on our Facebook page, but it's all the details are there in case you know anybody. So that's all I got.
Steve, is it, do you know how long the application period is?
I think we had it on the website through this Friday, but we're going to keep it open until we get some applications, and I'm not sure we've had a whole bunch flying in. So.
Okay. Is it a civil service position?
It is a civil service position. The pay is $65,000 a year with full benefits. But eventually you will have to take a test and all of that stuff as part of the civil service process.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Tell your friends. Thank you. That's exciting. Any other new business? Okay. Thank you, guys. I know that was long. I really appreciate it.
So
Can Daniel ask a question?
you entertaining a motion to adjourn?
I am.
Jessica has a question.
No, can Daniel ask a question because it's the end of the meeting?
Oh, Dan Carey. Yes, of course. Sorry. Hi.
Awesome. I'll try to keep this brief because I'm sure everybody's ready to do whatever else. I just have a few comments. I heard that QuickBooks was mentioned as like accounting software, and I used that for like a year and with my business, and I ended up moving to Wave, which was like almost exactly the same, but it's free. And looked into that business a little bit, and they're a pretty cool business. Like they donate and help people out and things like that. So might be, I don't know if you already looked into it. You said you already looked into a few things, but it's
Yeah,
called
I'm a software solutions person, not by choice. So I definitely investigated some options, and thank you. I do know about Wave, and because I am hosting their platform, it comes to no cost to Kingston City Land Bank. But thank you. If
Sweet.
you have any other software solutions, please feel free to share though.
Yeah. Well, I liked it better. It was free and I liked it better. So I was like, oh, cool. But yeah, those are, it's a hell of a learning curve for both of them. And I just wanted to thank you guys for putting the link on the website. It made it so much easier for me to get into this. Like the link was right at the top of the website. It's awesome. Another thing, so in your contractor process, are say for a plumber, for example, is the plumber bidding on buying the fixtures as well? I know I saw that you spec'd all the fixtures. Is the plumber buying them or are you guys buying them?
So with These, the plumber is, I don't think we have an incredibly strong preference. Yeah, I know a plumber expressed that we should just provide our own fixtures, but it looks like they will be provided by the GC or the plumber or some combination.
Right,
If
same
I
thing
can-
with like
if I can
cabinets.
interject, Daniel, it's the problem with having having the plumber or the electrician only do the labor, it result in a bunch of liability issues. It's a problem for them if things go wrong. It could be a problem for us if things go wrong, if the fixtures are wrong or if the power stuff is wrong. So generally, as a practice in municipal contracting, you want the contractor to supply all materials and equipment and labor necessary to do the job. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I was just like curious, like as a follow-up to that question would be like, are they getting it from IKEA?
Apparently not.
Okay, they're like, okay, here's a comparable fixture, and then you guys are like, okay, that'll do, and then
We'll talk about it. It's all gonna work out.
yeah, I was just curious. I was like, oh, I was wondering if you were buying it yourself, like NNS, and would you favor NNS and Herzog's instead of going, keep local money, blah blah blah.
Yes, we would. For the purposes of the RFQ, I sort of just needed stuff that was linkable. So that was the main reason, but it was always intended to be or comparable, preferably local. But
cool. Those are my questions. I appreciate everyone's time.
You got my catalog, so cool. All right. Now I will entertain a motion, Mr. Dennison.
I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second that.
All in favor of adjournment? Opposed? Abstain? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you guys once again. You're the best. I'll see you all soon.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.